Welcome to a new week of The Perspective with Mike Sherbino and Julie Stautland. Well, some say Canada is a country that has lost its foundational faith. While that may be true, in 2019, over 68% of Canadians say they have a religious affiliation, and over 54% said their beliefs were very important to how they live their lives. Well, that's why all this week we're featuring people who are living their faith out loud, proud, and most importantly, free. Olympic figure skating great Elizabeth Manley is here to talk about overcoming depression in her darkest nights. Plus, God speaks to us in many tongues, and Pastor Van Moody speaks to us about what unites us and how in Jesus we truly are all one. Director and storyteller Christopher Zalewski's latest film, Theirs is the Kingdom, is a masterpiece highlighting the plight of people who live in poverty. And the heart-stirring sounds of Kristen and Keith Getty. Did you know their song In Christ Alone, written by Stuart Townsend and Keith Getty, is sung over 45 million times in churches every year? This tour de force features a duet with the incomparable Alison Krauss, too. And back on the show, Josh Broom returns with his buddy Billy Hollywell to talk about their projects bridging faith and culture. So get ready for God's mercies, everybody, as we rise against the great odds among us to renew our minds, hearts, souls, and spirits.
Well, welcome today to The Perspective. Always glad as we start a new week just to have the kibitzing back and forth, find out what's been happening. I wish I could hear from you. What happened to you over the weekend? But instead, I'm going to ask Julie Stautland, what happened to you over the weekend, Julie?
Well, my eldest daughter got engaged.
Engaged?
Yes.
Engaged means so many different things, doesn't it?
Yes.
Having been down this road many times myself.
I feel too young for this, so I need some help here. You have 5 daughters. How do I deal with it? Yes.
Here's my first comment. Just get over that, okay?
I know I'm delusional. Let me have my delusion.
I didn't want to say that. It's better that you say. Yeah, forget buying stuff for yourself.
Yeah.
This is going to cost a lot of money, Julie.
Okay.
And it's going to cost a lot of money for the rest of life. Okay. And, yeah, just kidding. So what are you fearing the most? What are you fearing the most?
I've just enjoyed having them grow up, and I'm still feeling I'm going through the empty nest syndrome. So you know.
Well,
I'm one of those moms.
What was the worst thing for me, you asked? Well, let me tell you. Okay. So as a guy, and I'll tell this to your husband, Tori, you pretend like you got it all together, you're cool, you're analyzing this guy. The guy is never good enough, so let's just accept that, okay? But it was the night before. I sat at the top of the stairs with all my daughters, was they're getting married, and I break down. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I get that out of my system, and then let's go with it, and and then just start paying.
Just start paying. Okay.
Anyways, we're glad you're with us today on The Perspective. Really excited today because this is not a depressing time, right? No, this is really actually very happy. But we have Elizabeth Manley with us today, and she's going to talk to us about the ups and downs of stardom and some of the amazing jumps, the triple axel she did, stuff like that. I'm still working on a half axel.
If I can stand on the ice, I'm happy.
Well, I can do better than that. But anyway, stay with us. We're going to be right back with Elizabeth Manley. Well, Elizabeth Manley had the performance of her life at the Calgary 1988 Olympics when she won the silver medal in women's figure skating. And the superstar skate followed up a few weeks later with another silver at the World Championships. I just want to welcome Elizabeth today, and thanks for coming on the program. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it is truly my honor. Thank you for having me. This is great.
And you know, at the very beginning, I made some lame comment about landing a triple axel, and I can't do a half axel, but really it was the triple double combination. Just explain that amazing move. What all is involved?
Well, I was actually only 11 years old, and I landed my first triple jump in competition, and it was a combination jump, and I was actually the first female in Canada to actually pull off the combination. But I have to, you know, it's it kind of makes me giggle because I think every 7 and 8-year-old is doing a triple now. So it's like,
well, somebody had to break the barrier. Someone had to break through the barrier. And just even the thought of that tells me I'm pulling a hamstring.
Right.
So
well,
anyways.
Elizabeth, you have had such a stellar career. Do you still feel the thrill of those times, or have you moved on?
No, I do, because presently, just to give you an idea, I'm a mental health advocate, and I do a lot of work and a lot of speaking. And, my story is about, my skating career and what I went through as an athlete, as an elite athlete at a very young age. But it was mixed with a lot of other things too. But I find myself still living that moment over and over again because I'm always talking about it. But it's, it warms my heart because, gosh, I'm, 25 plus HST, if you can figure that one out. No, I'm just joking. I'm in my 50s now, and it just amazes me that I can walk into a grocery store or a mall, people stop me, and it's like it was yesterday still to everybody. And that truly, for me, is such an honor because it wasn't about just winning a medal for myself, but it was for all of Canada.
Exactly.
Elizabeth, when you talk about that, people still recognizing you, and we go back to 1988 and even the subsequent years, there's always the picture of glamour. We've had different athletes on the program and well-known celebrities, but there's a personal life, a private life, and it almost seems like incongruous to think that people are struggling with depression. Take us back as to what you struggled with and maybe what kick-started it.
I think it was, a lot of things happened to me at a very young age. And, after getting therapy and treatment and being resilient through it, what I came to the realization was, as an athlete, I was trained to keep everything inside. I wasn't allowed to express my feelings. We always had to look tough. We never wanted our competitors to know we were struggling, whether it was emotionally or physically. It's just like if you watch, let's say the Toronto Maple Leafs and there's a player out, they'll always just say a lower body injury. You'll never find out what the real truth is because you don't want the opponents to know. And it's very similar in all the sports. You always have to keep that strong kind of outlook, that face, like you say, very glamorous and everything. And one of the sayings that I remember as a child that has always stuck with me, and it was, take your tears out to the parking lot. We don't want to see it. You got to be tough and get back on that horse. And, so when you grow up in that kind of atmosphere, you tend to do that on a personal level as well. I came, from a single mom, raising me in a very expensive elite sport and seeing her going into debt and everything. And so if I was to express my issues to her, I just felt like I was adding more to her plate.
Right.
And,
Elizabeth, I totally, resonate with what you've gone through as my own story of being a former beauty queen and being anorexic, bulimic, suicidal, and depressed, and having that mask on and feeling like you're not allowed to take that mask off and allow people to see what you're struggling with. And I just wonder who helped you get to where you got to now.
Well, similar to you, and, my heart goes out to you because if anyone understands, it's me. But I was that 16-year-old kid sitting on the side of my bed, and I had lost all my hair. I gained 50 pounds in water retention. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. And when I finally got into that specialist, that's when I was diagnosed as a nervous breakdown, depression, anxiety. And I was very suicidal that night. I thought I had let everybody down. And I'm sure you feel the same way, that when you're not at your best, you feel like you're letting everyone down. And the biggest one for me that I have to share was I felt like I let Canada down in that moment. And as a 16-year-old kid, that is a huge amount of, pressure and things on your shoulder. And I was blessed. Somebody reached out to us that offered his help. And, we were not from a wealthy family in any way. And, my mom had to decline because we had no money. In the 80s, it was so hard to get help, and it was expensive if you did. But this gentleman, his name was Dr. Terry Orlick, one of the most incredible people in my life. And he reached out and wanted to do a pro bono. And it turned out to be 4 years of talk therapy and then me getting that uniform to Calgary.
Wow.
So, Elizabeth, as you're going through all of this, you also, there was family issues. Parents had gone through a divorce and things like that. How did all that factor in?
I didn't think it did. Back then, my dad was a very high ranking officer in the Air Force, and he traveled all the time. And for me, when they got divorced, I thought, well, it's just like he's on another business trip and I'll still see him. But what I didn't understand at the time was he took a posting to Europe. And as you can remember, in the 80s, there was no such thing as what we're doing right now. There was no computers, there was no Zoom, there was no FaceTime. And so my relationship with my father became just handwritten letters. And it wasn't until I started getting therapy and treatment and everything that I realized it really did affect my life, not having that person there, whether it was just being my father or supporting me or helping my mom out. And so there was a lot going on. There was some resentment, there was some animosity and fear. I was very scared for my mom, to suddenly be forced back into the workforce. And my brothers were all off playing hockey. So it was just her and me struggling to make ends meet at the time.
Well, listen, we're going to take a break, and we want to ask you a whole bunch more questions. It is such a pleasure to have you with us. So stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back with Elizabeth Manley.
Manley's crowning achievement arose at the Calgary 1988 Olympic Winter Games, where she earned her place with silver medal and a performance that could be described as the best of her life. She entered Canada's Sports Hall of Fame in 2014 and continues to be an ambassador of sorts to speak about the importance of recognizing and talking about mental illness, and is an inspiration for Canadians everywhere.
We're here today with ice skating sensation Elizabeth Manley. And Elizabeth, I want to ask, as we jump into the second part of the interview today, a question that sometimes ticks people off, and other times it kind of says, okay, it opens things up. And here is the issue. Many times in the midst of dark times, people will say, well, where is God? And how do we process our understanding of him? Does he care for us? Has he forgotten about us? Why am I going through what I'm going through? I wonder if you could talk to that subject out of your own experience.
Oh, yes. I grew up Catholic, and with our lifestyle, obviously, we, didn't end up going to church on Sunday, things that we were moved all the time in the Air Force. And I reached back to God in the early 2000s because I felt there was an emptiness in me and there was something that I was missing. And I, was so faithful. And I remember going and speaking, at the time with a minister, and, he was very insightful, and he, welcomed me back to the church, and I went through everything that I needed to do, and I felt really good. And it was funny because when I went that first day and had a meeting with them, it was thundering and it was pouring outside, and it was the worst storm. And I thought, oh no, God knows I'm coming back to the church, right? And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, like what's happening here? It was like hailing. And when I went in, he told me to, go do 10 Hail Marys, go down into the basement of the church and do some praying and things like that. And I'm not lying. When I came out of the church, the sun just broke open. Like it was like the earth opened up, and I was so in awe with that experience, and I embraced it, and I continued, working on myself and my spiritual ways and everything like that. And then my best friend in my entire life, which was my mother, got very, very ill. And she was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. And I remember spending so much time in the chapel in the hospital and praying and everything. And then when she lost the battle, I did go through that. I really struggled with it. I was angry. I was like, why her? The nicest woman in the entire world, wouldn't hurt a fly, And I did go through a bit of that stage, but then I realized, I have to start looking at things in a different perspective. And what I ended up doing is, reaching back out for answers and, speaking and, manifesting, whatever you might want to call it. And that in turn turned me into becoming a spokesperson for Ovarian Cancer Canada. And I was one of the ones that started the Walk of Hope, which raised over $70 million for research for ovarian cancer. And I think that's what was God's way of leading me into a place that would heal me, and make me stronger and help others. And I find that's where I am today. Today, my life is about helping others. And as much, please don't get me wrong, as much as I love the Olympic medal and it's everything I dreamed about,
right,
I think that was just a stepping stone for a bigger picture. And the bigger picture right now for me is helping others and working with others. I'm a life coach now, and I work with many. And I think the Olympic medal was just that stepping stone in my journey of mental health and hardship and God.
So when you look back at that and you look back to that time, do you feel that God still propelled you into skating? I mean, obviously, along with your sheer grit and determination.
I definitely think so, because, as I just said, like, I feel that I'm doing what I was meant to be doing now. And if I hadn't been propelled, whatever it may have been, God or spiritual, whatever it was that pushed me to be resilient in my sport and to stand up for anybody that's suffering in silence. I mean, that medal, I don't have it hanging up anywhere in my house.
No,
no, it's in a drawer. But I think it's because in my family, it's a gold medal in life.
Yeah,
and it's a medal for anybody that is suffering in silence and that has never had or has that belief that they can, whether it's, reaching out to God or other spiritual ways or whatever it may be, but to find that path, that path of truth. And that's where that Olympic medal has led me. And so it's a medal in life. And I'm a true believer that everybody can have a medal in life. It doesn't have to be an Olympic medal.
Yeah.
It's just a medal in life and being passionate about, their beliefs and what they want in life.
Well, Elizabeth, as you're sharing that story, I'm kind of intrigued that the medal is in the drawer. That tells me a lot about you and that you're not living in the past.
Yeah.
You wrote a book called Thumbs Up and another book, As I Am. I want you to explain, what's the focus of each book and why the title, especially Thumbs Up.
Well, there's a great picture of me from the Olympics where I was skating off the ice with my thumb up. And I wanted to write a book about my experience and my depression. And I have to share with you that when the final copy came back to me, it was already being published and printed and everything, a lot of my story was missing. And I remember saying to the writer and the publisher, like, why is a lot of the story missing? Like, I really wanted to get it out there. And literally I got, the world's not ready to hear such a severe story, that people aren't prepared to put. Yeah, I'm not prepared to put Canada's sweetheart and mental health in the same sentence. Just let them, enjoy the white cowboy hat in the moment, right? And I was very frustrated because I really wanted, even if it helped one person, I wanted people to hear what I went through and what the experience was. The second book, I wish I hadn't written it.
Oh, really? That's even more interesting.
I know. A lot of parents ask me about the second book and I'm like, not till your kids are 18. But it was, it was a tough time in my life where I suddenly, I was a professional. I was in love. I had my heart broken. I had my heart broken in the professional skating world in different ways. And I think it was just a little bit bitter. And I'm so far from that today.
Right.
I'm in a great place. So I tend to not, like, if people ask me to donate a book or something, I really never donate a book. I'm like, okay, that was the bitter Liz, and I'm never getting married Liz, and all that, right?
But isn't that what it is? Life is a journey, and as we're walking, we stumble sometimes, and it's okay, to be honest about it. So listen, on a lighter note, as we wrap up here in a few seconds, tell us about what it's been like being inducted into the Canadian Hall of Fame and all your awards.
Oh, it's such an honor. I think I'm in like 6 or 7 now, and I think I have every key to every city in Canada here in my room somewhere.
Oh, I have one. I have the key to Strathroy.
There you go. Actually, I just stayed in Strathroy not long ago.
Really?
But it's like it's a realization that it was a great moment for Canada, and it just means so much to me that I could bring a smile and a cheer to so many living rooms and places that night. And I had one lady reach out to me. She was in labor while the event was on, and she refused. She refused to push until I had finished skating. She wrote me this long letter. Yeah. And,
talk about pushing through.
I know. I'm keeping this baby in until she's done,
Wow.
But it's an honor. It truly is an honor. And, I'm still coaching skating right now at the Elizabeth Manley Arena, which, is, sometimes I wake up and I shake my head and go, is this all real? So, but I'm so normal. So it's sometimes it's kind of hard for me to accept a lot of this stuff because I'm pretty normal.
Elizabeth, I want to thank you for coming on the program today and just being normal and sharing your stuff. I'm inspired to go out now, and when I put my hockey gear on, I'm going to try at least a half axel. Okay?
Oh, no.
Absolutely.
I'll send you a picture.
You gotta do it. Okay.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Stay with us, everyone. We're going to be right back with Mike and the Word.
God was using people to reach me at the lowest point in my life and giving me father figures and big brothers in the faith to pour into me. And they just discipled me. They taught me how to memorize scripture. They taught me how to share my testimony. They taught me how to read the Bible. And the more that I learned it, the more that I was getting the word in me, I started to become stronger. And I started to find my identity in Christ. And it got to the point where I didn't even care about playing football no more. I just wanted to tell people about this life-changing experience that I received because I've never felt anything like this in my life before.
The writer Lewis Smedes has said, and I'd like to borrow from him as I'm teaching right now. He said this, that if I had just one gift to give to you, I think it would be integrity. Such a gift that when you come to the last chapter of your story, you could say with the psalmist in Psalm 26, when he says this, "Vindicate me, O Lord, because I have walked in my integrity." What a way to go. Integrity is such an important subject. We know we want it in other people, we want it in ourselves, and yet it seems to be a lacking commodity in so many individuals and oftentimes in so many relationships. Some of you remember the great German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was almost hearing the stomping of the Gestapo boots when they were coming to take him away to execute him. And he wondered on paper what kind of people the church was going to need most when the last bomb had exploded and the last person had been killed. And he said this, what the church needs are not people of genius, not brilliant tacticians or strategists, but simple, straightforward, honest men and women. I think we need to say, Bonhoeffer, we need you now. And if I had a gift, I would give you integrity, but I can't give it to you because it's not a gift that zaps us in the night. This is a gift that we have to work at all our lives as we co-author our stories with God. I was speaking to an older businessman recently, and as we were ruminating over breakfast and talking through some things, what we really were talking about is what does it mean to be people of integrity in the workforce? And especially when you're wheeling and dealing and doing all these big deals, how do you become a person of integrity? It's not overnight, it's a daily thing. We come to the story of the book of Ruth, and as we enter into the 3rd chapter, and we've been here for several days, we find an interesting story that unfolds. It's a story that you need to understand the culture of the day. You remember that Ruth has gone back with her mother-in-law, Naomi. They've gone back to Bethlehem. They've been away for 10 years. Ruth is the Moabitess. She is considered the outsider. And Naomi is dealing with an incredible sense of personal failure. But as they go back, Ruth goes to glean barley in the fields of a man named Boaz. She doesn't know who he is. And the scripture actually says in chapter 2, she happened to go to the field of Boaz. The idea of happening actually is a reference to the fact that in the midst of everything, God is still in control. He's still in control of your life right now, even as he's writing the story of integrity. But every day, you and I have to make decisions. We have to make decisions on what we're going to choose to do or what we're not going to choose to do. I find one of the interesting stories that comes out of the book of Ruth is the famine that many people are going through. It has been a very difficult time. And as we go through difficult times, as we're seeing difficult things happen throughout the world, all of us have the opportunity to choose how we're going to go through those moments. How are you going to choose to go through the difficult situation that you could be in today? Well, God invites us to be people of integrity. And so as Ruth goes to the threshing floor that night, she discovers that this man Boaz is a distant relative. And the culture says that the distant relative is to provide for the family if the husband dies. And so Naomi coaches her young daughter-in-law and says, listen, you need to go to the threshing floor, and after he is eaten and drunk and he is sound asleep, you're to go and lie at his feet. Strange culture. My wife said, don't ever try to do that with me. And so anyways, she goes and lies at his feet, and she waits there. And in the middle of the night, he wakes up startled. He could have taken advantage of Ruth at that point, but he also was a person of integrity. It's interesting that I find that oftentimes our integrity is challenged in the moments when no one is looking, in those dark moments when we have opportunity to give in to temptation or not. Ruth doesn't give in to the temptation. She is trusting in God, but she's saying, will you help me? And she leaves the rest with God. And Boaz could have taken advantage of her physically and sexually at that moment, but he chooses not to. Instead, he gives her food. He says, you need to leave and go back to your mother, and in the morning, I will take care of the business to provide for you. As I was thinking about integrity, it really becomes a reflection of who I allow to influence me. Who are you allowing to be the influences of your life? And it also becomes a rationale for how I choose to handle life's issues. Don't let people without a vision vote on yours, because they're always going to want to bring you down. And I want to invite you today to be men, to be women who rise to the situation, who say, I'm going to believe that God loves me, that he wants to live through me, and allow him to take your situation and allow you to become a person of integrity.